Save America Act is the number one thing the people want. They want fair elections. We just saw the nonsense in California, and so President Trump was exactly right. I'm proud of what he did today. He spoke up. He called people out. They had a very good conversation back and forth. But people need to be called out. If you're not going to vote for this country, my God, folks, we are in trouble.
Well, this is great stuff because today Trump pulled out the ultimate power move on the RINOs within our Republican Senate. He literally hit the RINOs with a stone cold stunner. What? No, but seriously, you may have noticed that despite the Save America Act being a political priority of Trump and the overwhelming vast majority of his base, it has effectively died on Capitol Hill, and that is coming without, let's be honest, Republicans putting up all that much of a fight. I mean, I understand that the filibuster is standing in the way, and obviously Democrats are not going to support this, but at the same time, there was a lot of talk about maybe transitioning to the traditional talking filibuster and at least making Democrats really go out on the record and make this big public thing if they want to dare to kill the act instead of Republicans killing the bill themselves. There were other conversations, maybe more radical ones, about nuking the filibuster altogether, finding a way around it. But this is to say, I mean, I think you can clearly tell Senate Republican leadership didn't really care all that much to actually make this bill pass or get it through. Allegedly, we do not even have the full support of 100% of the Republican caucus. John Thune is so inept at being Senate leader, he can't even find the Republican votes to get this thing across the finish line, which arguably is very perplexing because it would be one thing to say, oh, I'm a senator from a swing state. I don't want to do something too conservative that might alienate my base before the voters, I should say, before the next election. But the thing is, I'm not sure if Republicans have realized, but the Save America Act is something that is designed to help them in elections. Sure, it just makes elections more secure, but obviously that would help Republicans a lot more in elections, and yet they don't want to take it, which is exactly why Trump has effectively said to the Senate Republicans, if you're going to deny something that I want, I'm going to deny something that you want. And that is exactly the scene we saw on Capitol Hill today, where Trump canceled the signing for this bipartisan housing bill that a lot of the Republicans want passed for their own re-election purposes, basically saying he's not doing anything. He's not going to touch this thing. He's not going to sign what they want him to sign until Senate Republicans pass the Save America Act. And this has caused pretty public panic coming from John Thune and Senate Republican leadership. They're stunned that he would do this, but hey, after all, it was quite simple. Trump told you a million times, your voter base, by the way, was very adamant. We want the Save America Act. It's not even particularly something super conservative. It is common sense. Hey, why wouldn't Republicans at least have the self-preservation to say, I want to win my own re-election? You know, how hard is it to tell even greedy, self-interested politicians, hey, we're trying to help you win. We're trying to help you stay in power. But you know how this type of stuff goes. Nonetheless, let's tell you about the whole chronicle that unfolded today that I found to be quite entertaining and at the very least kind of sends a statement, right? That especially even going into the midterms, while I'm certainly not calling to boycott any general elections because they're important, I think Trump at the same time is trying to use some leverage, right? Basically send the message that, hey, my full support, my endorsement, rallying for you, doing all this stuff, because it's very difficult for down ballot Republicans to typically win on their own without Trump's help. We've seen that as a trend in the last decade. That's not unconditional. You guys have to pass my agenda. You know, you guys have to do things. And the simple response to that from the Senate Republicans, I guess, can basically be summarized by, what? They don't know what he's talking about. I said pass the Save America Act, right? But anyways, let's get into this, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that in mind, let us not forget, Trump has said this a million times, many times, over and over again. He wants Senate Republicans to do their job, and this idea that they can just like kill a bill quietly and move on and never speak about it is not something that he's going to accept.
Well, we're just going to talk about Save America. We have to pass the Save America Act, which is voter ID, which is proof of citizenship, etc. We have to pass it So we're going to have to talk about that and many other things. A lot of good relations.
The president, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, has told you many times he doesn't believe that they have the votes to pass it. That's what being a leader's about.
You know, he's a leader. John's a leader. That's what being as a leader about. Look, we have to be able to get proof of citizenship when you vote. Otherwise, we don't have elections. We have to be able to get voter ID. So John is a leader, and hopefully he can get the vote.
And that is, first of all, a great point. You have the Senate leader telling you that he doesn't think we have the votes for it. And Trump points out, yes, that is your job as the Republican Senate leader, to go and get the votes. What is he doing as leader? Now, it would be one thing to exclusively say that it's just the Democrats who aren't going to support this, which maybe is not all that surprising, given that this is a bill that would likely deny them a lot of political power, and so I fully understand that. But from what we currently know, it appears that Save America doesn't even have 100% support among the Republican caucus, which, yes, does fall on John Thune, and it really does beg the question, what on earth is he doing? And what especially infuriates me about Republicans just killing this thing and moving on is that I would argue in the month of June especially, there has never been a greater mandate to pass the Save America Act. There's never been a greater time to bring that back to the national conversation. Why? Because we just witnessed what happened in Los Angeles with Spencer Pratt. Okay, people are talking about this nonstop. And by the way, the amount of normies, the amount of non-MAGA people, even center-left liberal people who have kind of come around on this and even said, look, I don't know if I believe everything about 2020 or whatever, but maybe the right-wingers, maybe the MAGA Republicans have a point with this election security type of stuff and everything that's broken about the system. This, if you remember a couple weeks ago, was a widespread conversation. Even some liberal-leaning people are saying this, which is to say, the political capital to get this done, the political mandate to get this done, never been more so than right now, because people are kind of awake to it, right? Again, even outside of our base, people watched that election and said, yeah, that didn't seem right. And then, furthermore, going into this midterm, understanding, hey, you know, it's going to be a fight for sure. We saw what happened in California. By the way, what if control of the U.S. House, let's say hypothetically, comes down to a state like California and Republicans are screwed in that case? So it just all makes sense, right? All of the stars perfectly align to think you should at least fight for the Save America Act, at least try to bring it back to the floor. Even if you are going to say, oh, the filibuster's no way around it, even though I have questions about that. But okay, at the very least, put it on the floor, reinstate the talking filibuster, and make that the national conversation, right? Off the heels of the LA election, at least make Democrats publicly go out on the record and justify and defend and explain the Democrats' official position is we want the LA election to look like the rest of America. At least make them do that, right? Put up the fight. Start a political conversation nationally. No, instead Republicans just moved on. Didn't even talk about the LA election largely on a national level, even though media's all over it, the Republican base is all over it. You know, this is why they're just such a disgrace time and time again. And by the way, okay, so you're not going to do the Save America Act. Okay, what are they doing right now in Congress? What's so important that's bigger than this? We don't exactly know, but that's exactly why Trump figured out, okay, if they're going to play these games with me, I have ways I can play them back by delaying and refusing to pass or refusing to sign things. Because this week, Congress apparently passed the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. And what this basically is some bipartisan housing reform that, by the way, is, from what I understand, I mean, I haven't researched too much into the bill, but largely appears to be good regulation, right? Designed to bring down the cost of housing in America, make it much easier to build new housing. And so this includes, for example, bipartisan reform to fix housing shortage and lower costs. No big new spending, but basically part of it is actually deregulation, right? It would streamline permitting, zoning, and NEPA reviews to speed up the building process. So actually get rid of some of the bureaucracy, which is kind of surprising that Democrats voted for this, given that it eliminates bureaucracy, but nonetheless, it includes a $200 million innovation fund, grants for local governments to boost the housing supply, It lets the CDBG fund new building of affordable homes, raises the bank investment account cap, I should say, limits large investors like BlackRock from buying too many single-family homes, modernizes, housing processes, boosts the rules for modular homes, things like this. So basically, you get the idea, right? The whole point is to make it easier to build new housing in America. And by the way, you'd likely imagine that a lot of Republican representatives as well want to get this thing passed and signed and want their name next to it because they believe that will help them in the election. I guess Save America Act will not help them in the election, but, this housing reform, whatever, is more important. Trump, by the way, is fine with this bill. He supports it. But today, while there was a plan, basically, they had a luncheon with the Republican senators on Capitol Hill, and he was supposed to sign the bill today. Guess what he came out and announced at the last minute? It's canceled. It's canceled. Why? For the time being, until Senate Republicans pass the Save America Act. Take a listen to this statement. So it says, today's housing news conference and signing is hereby canceled until such time as we pass the desperately needed Save America Act, which I consider to be a national emergency. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So needless to say, a lot of the defenders of the Senate GOP are fuming over this. They're saying, we need that housing bill. How dare he do that? Well, it's not that we're vetoing the housing bill. Trump's just basically saying, look, in the same way that the Save America Act is sitting on your desk and you're doing nothing with it, okay, if you're going to continue and we consider election integrity to be a national emergency, which, by the way, it is. Look at what just happened earlier this month. Again, never a better time, a more important time to get this done than right now. Then that's what I'm going to do. You leave my bill on your desk and do nothing. I'm going to leave your bill on my desk and do nothing. And, this is something I find to be quite hilarious. Now, granted, this is a veto-proof bill, right? More than 2/3 of Congress ended up voting for this. And so, hypothetically, I suppose Congress could just override Trump's veto. But hey, at the very least, make it look difficult. It's not, and objectively, it's probably not going to be a good look for the Republican Party, who, keep in mind, they're ultimately the ones who have to run in this midterm, not Trump, right? For them to have this big thing where they had to override Trump's veto or something like that. And so most likely they want to avoid that option. And so this is Trump just basically playing hardball and say, yeah, if you want my blessing on this bill, you want my endorsement, pass the freaking Save America Act, right? Where I'm going to hold your stuff hostage until you get my stuff done, which is, of course, how you do it. I mean, that's brilliant. I have no complaints. That's exactly what you should be doing. Leader John Thune, by the way, did not seem to have the happiest reaction. So he walked off the Senate floor learning that Trump had canceled this housing bill signing ceremony because he didn't pass the Save America Act. And his response was simply, and I quote, "I don't have an observation," but clearly you can hear the fuming. You can read the fuming in that very statement alone. You can see, too, by the way, as Trump exits the meeting with John Thune on Capitol Hill. And John Thune literally tries, after, this is all going down and he probably knows what's about to happen. John Thune literally tries to, take his arm and block Trump from talking to the reporters, right? He's like, don't talk to us. We want to close the lid, whatever. And Trump is like, no. We're going to talk to these reporters. And you can see the whole thing on John Thune's face and his body language and his expression. He's not happy at all whatsoever.
The war is going very well. As you know, we're winning by a lot. Iran is making very big concessions. We'll see what happens, but it's been very, very, very powerful.
So yeah, you can see the clearly uncomfortable face of John Thune. That's the face of a man who just took a stone cold stunner behind closed doors, right? He sits there with that stupid tie. What? That stupid haircut. What? And he looks like a jackass. What? I said he looks like a jackass. But, bottom line, oh yeah, that's funny. I said that. That was not intended. But no, he clearly not happy, right? What else can we say? Clearly, the goal here of the Senate GOP was to move on. They didn't want the Save America Act, and to the extent that they did, they didn't care. They didn't think it was important enough, and they figured that, it's the year of the midterms, right? So surely we can get away with it. surely Trump's not going to publicly humiliate us in front of the world because we're all trying to win the same election. And it's like, look, we don't want to do that. Again, I'm not being one of these characters telling people to boycott the election. I just understand how objectively harder it's going to be in this election if we do not have basic common sense election integrity taking place during the election. And so that's where I've stood on it. You know, I'm going to repeat. I don't think this is an attempt at sabotaging the GOP. Okay, we're not trying to tear down the party. We're trying to literally help the party. You know, it's one thing to say that maybe so-and-so piece of legislation might be too politically unpopular. But again, not only have I argued, I think we just won the debate on this voter ID stuff, this election integrity stuff, proof of citizenship, all of that, because of the nation having its eyes on what happened in LA. But even beyond that, let's also be real about this. Well, okay, if people are angry at you, if a certain population who, let's say, doesn't have voter ID or doesn't know how to get it, doesn't know or can't prove their citizenship, and the Save America Act effectively blocks those people from voting in the election, are they actually going to have a retaliation? Are they going to come for you in the election? No, because you've starved those people out. So there really, I would argue, is very little political loss or drawback to not passing the Save America Act. It probably just comes down to Senate Republicans are scared to do anything that actually would dramatically fix the country. And so, you know, that's why often they hide behind the filibuster as an excuse. You would think if they really wanted to, let's be honest, they could at least find a way around it. Or again, even if you don't want to pass it, how about at least show that you're kind of fighting for it, right? At least do the talking filibuster. Make Democrats get up there for the 24-hour stupid speech that they'll try to do or whatever, and make them defend the Los Angeles election. Let's see them do that. Let's see them try to be persuasive. No, instead, we had that LA election, and what does the national GOP do about it effectively? Nothing. They just want to move on. Well, Trump's saying, hey, that's not going to happen. And if you do let that happen, you're going to suffer as well politically, because we're not going to just sit here and take it, which is exactly the way to go. That's how you fight back, by the way. That's how you put pressure on these Republicans. The answer is not to go vote for Democrats or sit out the election like a lot of people are saying, but there are ways that you can do this, right? There are ways that you can, play games, use leverage, and that's what Trump understands, and he's being very smart in doing so. But anyways, I love to see it. Let's keep the pressure up. That said, guys, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.